much impact will that have?
Well, I can tell you in China there is a reappraisal that is taking place, and I expect that Chinese policy will come to grips with dealing with environmental issues, not only in terms of what it means for climate change globally, but also at the local level. So my anticipation is that you would see major improvements in energy efficiency, as a result of which they probably retire some of their older power plants. And secondly, you will see a major surge in renewable energy production. Of course, we realize fully that change cannot take place overnight. But as long as we embark on the transition, and we embark on it at a rate that's really going to make an impact, that perhaps is what we should try to do. And that's something which is to be done globally. This is where I believe that a global agreement, which is anticipated in Paris at the end of next year, could be a very useful trigger in bringing about change. However, I think what you really need is action across the globe, at the local level, at the national level, at the subnational level, and I think if all of that were to happen, perhaps the agreement that one expects in Paris would just strengthen the resolve of some of the entities at the local, national, subnational level to take the right kinds of steps that are required.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for that great presentation. The name is Dr. Trotz, and I am originally from Guyana. And the question I had was dealing with forests. In the early 90s, Guyana donated 371,000 hectares of virgin forest to the world as a biodiversity conservation area. That's something that was actually conceived in the office of some of the people who are part of your IPCC team. And the question I have is that now that you are the chairman of the board of the Iroquois Center, what do you see as the vision for moving that to be the world-class center that it should be? How do we get resources there? What are the needs that persons in diaspora who feel strongly about this place, like myself, can do? And what can we do with the School of Global Sustainability here that offers a master's, an MA in sustainable tourism to engage our college and our university much more with Iroquois? Thank you.
Well, just to acquaint the audience over here with what Iroquois is, this is about 1 million acres of beautiful rainforest in Guyana. And this was established in 1996 as a kind of an international trust by the government of Guyana and the Commonwealth Secretariat to act as a model of sustainable management of rainforest resources. And I accepted chairmanship of the trust a little more than a year and a half ago because, you know, as you can see, I'm partly underemployed. So, and the question you asked me, I mean, I really need answers for that. You know, this is a remarkable resource, and you just have to go there to realize what a wealth of biodiversity, of biomass growth, of beautiful ecosystem over 1 million acres of land this represents. But it's just not been able to draw the resources that are required to manage it effectively. We're struggling very hard. We certainly would like to see this become a major model of ecotourism, because just imagine if graduate students who are working on forestry and related areas were to go to a place like this. It would be an eye-opening experience. It certainly is. So I need all the help I can get. And maybe I should tap your intellectual resources to tell me what needs to be done. It's tough. It's a struggle to get resources for something like this. And somehow we've got to convince a few organizations to put in a very modest amount of resources and make this a great success and a model for the rest of the world to follow. I'm sorry I don't have an answer. If I did, then we would have implemented that. We're trying very hard, but if you can give me some thoughts, the next time I'm in Tampa, I'd love to sit down with you over a cup of coffee or something stronger. Maybe put 15-year-old rum from Guyana. And I can recommend that to you. It's really good stuff.
I'm interested in the emerging discourse around climate engineering, like carbon capture storage and albedo enhancement, things like that. And I'd like you to talk about the process by which that climate engineering has made its way into recent IPCC reports and where you see that going in the future.
Well, you see, we've assessed geoengineering in this particular report, but our conclusion broadly is that none of these technologies is mature at this point of time. So none of them really represents a solution. But what we have found for carbon capture and storage, on which a fair amount of work has been done, and in fact over 10 years ago the IPCC brought out a special report on this subject. Carbon capture and storage does have promise, but that promise will only be achieved if the world spends enough in terms of research and development and demonstration projects. And I hope governments and those companies which are involved in work in this area put in enough resources and effort to see that CCS becomes a viable technology. It has the potential, but it's not quite there yet. So let's hope for the best. But that's one of the things we highlighted as an important solution for the future, as a possible solution for the future.
I have many questions, but I'll limit it to one.
You're next.
The next. Jochen Eckhardt, I'm a visiting faculty at the Patel College. Your story and your message you conveyed is so clear. And so I'm always wondering, what do we have to make to communicate this better? Because the story, if you tell us, resonates, but it don't seem to resonate with all the people who are required. Do you have any ideas how we can communicate the need for doing better, the solutions for doing better in another way?
I think we really have to communicate science far better. And the scientific community, of course, has done something in the past, but it's not been adequate. And we certainly need partners. We certainly need partners in institutions like this. Because unless you spread the message, unless you provide the findings of science and scientific bodies like the IPCC, the public is not going to understand this whole issue. The urgency of taking action is also much higher in this case, simply because we need to take action early if we really want to contain temperature increase and climate change to levels that are by and large acceptable. So I think the answer really is to bring about massive awareness worldwide on the reality and on the science of climate change. And in that, certainly, institutions like this can play an extremely important part.
So I think everyone in the room can agree that climate change is bad, but if there are countries that are actually probably going to benefit from climate change, is there a diplomatic way of actually dealing with those countries? Do you have any ideas of how to?
Well, I actually made a statement a month ago that no part of this planet is going to be untouched by the impacts of climate change. And I tell you, in 2004, I think it was, that there was a major conference in Moscow at which President Putin spoke. He read a statement which was very matter of fact, very uninspiring. And then some of us spoke after him, and then he put up his hand and he said he wanted to speak again. So he started by being humorous. He said, everybody tells me climate change is good for Russia because we won't spend so much on fur coats. And that there are parts of Russia which will thrive with agriculture and so on. He says, but I have to worry about floods, I have to worry about droughts, I also have to worry about the rest of the world. And that came as a refreshing statement from him. So the point I'm making is, you see, in the net, you'll find there are very few places on earth that are really going to benefit. Because if you sum up all the impacts of climate change the negatives are going to outweigh the pluses. So I cannot possibly visualize any part of the world coming out a winner as far as climate change is concerned. And I think this is something that we have to ensure people understand. They shouldn't look at a narrow and short-term illusory benefit, which is really not going to be there.
Hello, I was hoping that you would speak about the role that anecdotal or non-expert knowledge plays in the development of a project like the IPCC report.
Well, you see, we by our very mandate are supposed to carry out an assessment of climate change based on published literature. Yes, if there's anecdotal evidence which has been provided in the literature, we will assess it. I'll tell you in our report on extreme events and disasters, we looked at specific case studies of disasters which had occurred in different parts of the world, and they were very revealing. So it's not as though we don't look at these kinds of anecdotal cases, but we can only look at them if they've been published. And therefore, what I would encourage scientists as well as non-scientists to do is to publish some of this material, because I agree with you, it has a wealth of information that can give you insights which perhaps purely analytical type of research will not be able to reveal. But we need a lot more of that, no doubt.
Center for Sustainability maybe could contribute right now, because I got to think if it were 2 to 3 degrees warmer in here right now, that no one would be really uncomfortable. So maybe they could raise the thermostat. We all got to start doing something pretty much now. How much is known about the lag between release of emissions and the full extent of their impact? Because if it is 40 years, as I've heard, or even just 20 years, given how much has been released in recent decades, you have to wonder if we have not only lost the ability to prevent life-disrupting consequences, but we are losing, if we haven't already lost, the ability to react and respond.
Yeah, well, firstly, to respond to your comment, yes, I think campuses can do extremely well in practicing what we believe can make a difference and create a sustainable future. And I was very happy to learn that on this campus, students themselves have voted to pay for some of these initiatives, because I think if you set an example, then that carries much greater conviction than merely teaching people about it. On the question of lags, you know, we have carried out this detailed assessment on the basis of different scenarios of emissions and concentrations of greenhouse gases. And the lags are now pretty well modeled, and you know, they are very reliable in terms of giving you, using data from the past, a validation, a basis for validation, which is pretty strong. However, I think it's becoming quite apparent that the more you delay taking action, the more complex, the more expensive it's going to be. And that's something which, again, we have provided in the Working Group 3 report in terms of the trajectories of initiatives that have to be taken by way of mitigation. So, in simple terms, the answer to your question is yes, we are losing time. And if we lose time further, then it's going to become far more difficult to take action and far more expensive. And therefore, I think prudence dictates that we start taking action early and adequately.
I realize there are a lot more questions, but Dr. Pachauri has another appointment. He's already behind his schedule. So I'm sorry, but can we thank our guests and let him
Hi.
I actually have to continue working with him. He's waiting out in the lobby.
Okay.
His name's Patel.
I'm going to interview some people too. Is he just waiting there for me doing nothing else?
I'll let him know that, I'll text him and let him know that.
A couple more minutes? All right, cool. Thank. Ahmed, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.